Hello students. Today I am going to discuss the topic Indebtedness of Indian Farmers, Causes and Measures for Removal. The topic is also a part of the syllabus of B.sc Agriculture Semester 2nd of Punjab University Chandigarh. Indebtedness is one of the major problems concerning to the farmers of India. This problem is just not related to one individual but is passed on from one generation to the next generation. Taking debt for the purpose of agricultural production is indeed necessary as it contributes to production. However, the rural people take or incur debts for non productive purposes such as to meet the family needs, perform social functions related to marriages, birth, death, and litigation, etc. Since money taken does not contribute to production but instead to consumption, it drags the Indian farmers into indebtedness. Thus, it becomes impossible to repay these loans or debts. To clear these loans, the farmers incur debts again. In this way, they are stuck in the clutches of indebtedness, which passes on from one generation to another. The agricultural production for many small farmers of India is so less that they are not able to provide for such unproductive expenditure. Broadly, there are several factors responsible on account of which an Indian farmer incurs debt and remains indebted forever. Let us discuss the various causes of rural indebtedness or indebtedness of Indian farmers in detail. So, the first point or the first factor that is responsible for the indebtedness of Indian farmers is poverty. Poverty is perhaps the major cause of indebtedness of Indian farmers. A cultivator is forced to borrow for purposes of production or consumption because he is too poor. It is true that he is poor because he is indebted. He is compelled to borrow due to adverse circumstances in the family, failure of monsoon or floods, or other calamities. Except this, the low level of rural incomes, the uncertain and primitive farming of small land holdings makes it impossible to meet the needs required for their living. Often, the Indian farmers take debts to meet these needs. So, the next cause of indebtedness is ancestral or inherited debt. Most of the debts of Indian farmers of the present day are inherited from the past and which increases with the passage of time. An inheritor is liable to the repayment of the debt only to the extent of the property inherited by him. Despite this law, the farmers continue to repay the debts of their forefathers as they are not fully conversant with law. Bound by the traditions and values, they regard it as their social duty to repay the debts of their forefathers. Such increasing debt is passed on from one generation to another, making its repayment increasingly difficult whenever it is passed on. It is rightly stated that The Indian farmer is born in debt, lives in debt, and dies in debt. So, the next point or the next cause of indebtedness of Indian farmers is social and religious needs. Indian farmers are mostly bound by the social traditions and customs which are considered to be sound, to be sacred, and had to be performed. Some of these ceremonies are marriage, births, deaths, and religious occasions, etc. The expenditure is usually very high for the performance of these ceremonies. In order to meet these needs, the villagers or the farmers take loans. As their incomes are not sufficient enough, they are not able to repay these loans. Thus, they remain unpaid and increase with the passage of time. So, the next point is litigation. Litigation means the process of taking the legal actions in courts of law. So, the farmers in India are generally involved in various kinds of disputes related to land, property, etc., which force them to go to a court of law. Such litigations involve heavy expenditure and time. In order to meet these needs, the farmers take loans that they are not able to repay and are caught into indebtedness. So, the next point is backwardness of agriculture. Mostly, Indian agriculture depends on reliable rains for the supply of water or irrigation. If there are no rains or untimely rains, the entire crop is lost and the credit invested in the agriculture goes waste. As a result, the loan taken for the productive purposes also becomes a burden, leading to indebtedness of the farmers. So, the next point is defective money lending system. The village money lending system is very much defective. The sole aim of the money lenders is to extract the maximum from the farmers. The money lenders make wrong entries in their account books, charge very high rates, and extract high prices for the goods they sell to the farmers, but purchase the farmers' produce at very low prices. In course of time, as the amount debt increases, the money lenders are much interested in seizing the farmers' lands and other valuable assets than the debt being repaid by the farmers. Thus, the farmers are trapped in the hands of the money lenders. Next point is extravagance of the farmers. Poor farmers generally lead a miserable life, but on occasions they become extravagant, which goes to aggravate indebtedness. It has been recorded that they spend more than they can afford on social and religious ceremonies such as festivals, marriages, ornaments, and seasonal feasts, etc. They do not foresee and account for the future. In recent years, the extravagance of farmers of social ceremonies is on the increase, and they are still not careful about the future, especially when they reap good harvests. Except this, some other factors like illiteracy of farmers, poor and ill health of the farmers, heavy cattle mortality, high interest rate, etc., are responsible for the indebtedness of the Indian farmers. So, these were the causes which are responsible for the indebtedness of Indian farmers. And now we will discuss the measures which can help in the removal of indebtedness. So, the problem of indebtedness can be solved by two means. The first is to take up measures to reduce the burden of present indebtedness, and the second is to prevent the evil from rising again in the future. So at first, there are the measures to reduce the present burden of indebtedness. So, the first point for the present burden to be reduced is cancelling all the debts paid to the moneylenders by the farmers, which are more than the principal amount itself. Debts which are already repaid but still stand in the account books of the moneylenders. The second point is debts should be properly scaled down. According to law, the inheritors are liable to pay the debts only to the extent they have inherited. In this way, most of the debts will be reduced. Debts which don't have recorded records or exist with incomplete records should also be reduced. Third point is apart from the above two steps, the remaining part of the debts should be handled by special institutions such as banks. Such banks pay the amount to the moneylenders on one hand and recover the same from the debtors on easy terms. So, the next are the steps to control the problem of indebtedness in future. So, the first point for this is the income of the farmers should increase so that they could meet the unproductive expenses and are not forced to take any loan. In order to achieve this goal, it is necessary that agriculture should be conducted on scientific basis, not depending on the natural climatic factors. The next point is the panchayats and such other village level institutions should try to solve the village disputes and try to prevent them from going to the courts of law, which need heavy expenditure. The next measure or the next point to solve the problem is information regarding the laws and their implementation should be given to the villagers so that they do not get into the clutches of the moneylenders for generations. The last but not least, the point is adequate credit facilities on reasonable terms should be arranged to the farmers. Cooperative credit is a good solution in this regard. Private lending should be eliminated in this field. So, on the whole, with the help of both of these measures, the problem of indebtedness of Indian farmers can vanish completely. Thank you. Thank you very much.